Diego fought hard.
The knockdown
round 4, yes. Every other round was pretty easy to score. Alexander Volkanovski won the vast majority of every round, and even in the second round, when he did get knocked down, he had knocked down Diego early. But people remember what happens late. What a tremendous performance by Volkanovski.
I'm so happy for you, man. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopes just went down, and the results are in.
I did not like the idea of Volkanovski for a world championship. I didn't think it was right. I believe he's 1 win, 3 losses in his last 4 contests. I know his last 2 times they needed smelling salts and a stretcher. To suggest that he could fight for a world championship, I just thought was false, and it's certainly not because I don't respect Volkanovski. This is one of the greats. But I had a hard time being fair about getting him in front of Diego Lopes. But now that Toporia's gone and Volk isn't getting in front of Diego Lopes, he's going to get in front of Diego Lopes. I love the idea. Not to mention, I don't know who I think's going to win the fight. This is a very, very interesting fight. Better get his out of there in the first 15 minutes. You do not want to go to championship rounds with Volkanovski, no matter what kind of a run you are, no matter how young you are, how good you are. Don't see Volkanovski in the 4th and 5th round if you still got business to do.
The UFC found the perfect timing. Topuria took a break. Max moved into the BMF picture. Yair had some injuries. The featherweight division needed a main event, and Volkanovski looked for redemption. Diego Lopes, in great form and with tons of fan support, became the ideal opponent.
On the side of Michael Chandler. All right, moving on, we have Alexander Volkanovski taking on Diego Lopes. Now, we all know the story here. Alexander Volkanovski is no spring chicken, and I say that with nothing but love and respect and admiration. You should have seen the little promo that he did for a betting website. It was absolutely hilarious. He's singing and stuff. He's being a music producer.
Oh, well, guess the cat's out of the bag. I'm Volk, and when I'm not fighting, I'm one of the world's most sought-after music producers.
Step into my cage.
The man is an all-out legend. Simple as that. But the question is, who cares about that? It's not a...
Michael Bisping didn't just support Volkanovski because he likes him. His opinion came from experience, especially from knowing how it feels when people doubt you. Bisping knows what it's like to be seen as the older guy, the one who's already had his time. He's been through that himself, so when he looked at Volkanovski before this fight, he saw more than just a fighter. He saw someone in a situation he understood.
Nice guy competition, and Diego Lopes is a very, very nice guy, okay? But can Diego Lopes beat him? I think Volkanovski has got the better skill, okay? I do. I think he moves around very well. He beat Max Holloway 3 times in a row, and I don't care what you say. The first couple might have been kind of close, and they were, but Volk got the job done on the judges' scorecards. The third one, Volkanovski put an end to that conversation, okay? Of course, loses to Islam Makhachev.
Volkanovski came into this fight with a lot of pressure. He had just been knocked out, and some fans were already saying he was done. People were calling him past his prime, and that's not easy to deal with. Once that kind of talk starts, it doesn't go away quickly. It follows you into every interview, every face-off, and even into the cage. Bisping understood that. That's why he wasn't only looking at Volk's skills, he was paying attention to his mindset and his motivation.
Twice, goes up against Ilia Topuria, all right, gets clipped. Okay, now we all got it. He's too old. He can't take it anymore. The chin's expired. It's past his sell-by date. Father Time's catching up with him. Yeah. All well and good. It was Islam Makhachev and Ilia Topuria. And I do think that Diego Lopes is a very exciting young up-and-coming prospect. Of course, he's only 30.
To Bisping, this fight wasn't just another chance for Volkanovski to win. It was a chance to shut everyone up. It was personal. When a champion like Volk feels like he has something to prove, he fights differently. He becomes sharper, more focused, and even hungrier. That's the version of Volkanovski that Bisping believed would show up. And if that happened, it would send a message. That experience, when it's backed by hunger, can still beat youth and speed.
3 years old, and he's doing tremendous things, okay? Since he lost his UFC debut to Movsar Evloev, which he took on really short notice and came close to getting a submission on several occasions, he's now on a 5-fight unbeaten streak. And last time out, took out Brian Ortega and almost finished him in the first round, okay? I think he was just trying to prove that he could win by...
At the same time, Bisping wasn't ignoring Diego Lopes. He gave him credit for being wild and dangerous, especially in the early rounds. Lopes is unpredictable and exciting, and a lot of fans were hyped up because of how explosive he is. But Bisping also pointed out something important: Lopes has lost before. That's something fans tend to forget when someone is on a winning streak. Bisping didn't say that to disrespect him. He just wanted to remind people that Lopes is still learning and growing.
A submission, so they ended up going to the judges' scorecards, and that's the danger here. He is probably quicker. I think when you look at the wrestling side of things, Volkanovski doesn't have to worry about that. If Islam Makhachev couldn't take him down when he fought over 5 rounds...
And when you're fighting someone like Volkanovski, even small mistakes can cost you. That's what makes these matchups so tricky. It's not just about being fast or flashy, it's about being smart and prepared. Bisping has seen this pattern before, when veterans who've been counted out come back strong, and when rising stars get tested by experience. That's why his take wasn't just for hype, it came from what he's seen again and again in the sport.
...in Perth, Australia, and couldn't dominate him, and Volk could get back to his feet, and he could defend the submissions, and he could, in some people's minds, win that fight. It was very close, it was arguable. If he can do that, then he hasn't got to worry about the wrestling of Diego Lopes. I think the only way Diego Lopes gets him down is if he knocks him down. Left hook, baby. That's the best takedown in the game. I think Volkanovski's got better footwork. He's definitely got more experience. He's fought at the highest level. He's been there many times before. But of course, the man is under a lot of pressure.
For Bisping, this fight was all about timing, pressure, and legacy. And in Volkanovski, he saw someone who still had more to give, even when others had already moved on.
I really do think this is the biggest fight of my career. I think winning the belt now at the timing would be the biggest part of my story. So really looking forward to putting on a show and getting that belt back. A very dangerous fighter, you know, a very aggressive, dangerous fighter. Obviously great jiu-jitsu, power in the hands, always looking for the finish. So you've got to respect that and be wary. But you know, I just believe I'm the best and I'm going to prove that Saturday night.
For me, this is a big, Volkanovski is a legend in the sport. I follow your career for so long time, but now I think it's my time, it's my time for take the belt.
Volkanovski called this fight the biggest of his career. After his recent losses, he believed the timing of this matchup made it a turning point for him. He didn't ignore Lopes' danger, and he recognized his aggression, knockout power, and strong jiu-jitsu, but stayed confident in his own abilities and looked to prove he was still the best. Lopes, on the other hand, saw this as the perfect opportunity to step into the spotlight. He had followed Volkanovski's career for years, but believed it was finally his time to rise. He didn't treat the fight as just another match. He treated it as the moment he could take over and claim his place in the division. Both fighters showed maturity, gratitude, and sharp focus. They didn't try to sell the fight with drama. Instead, they respected each other and let their preparation and beliefs speak for themselves.
In the striking, very, very, very aggressive style, dangerous, and then on the ground as well. Aggressive style there as well. Like, you know, he likes to throw up submissions. He'll sacrifice positions to go for the submission. So, you know, guys like that are always going to be tough because the only way I lose is getting caught. Someone catching me. I don't think anyone can beat me 5 rounds, you know, and out-strategize me. I don't believe that. And I find that very hard. The only person I've said that could maybe get close is Islam.
Building off that tone of mutual respect, Volkanovski didn't shy away from acknowledging the specific threats Lopes brought to the table. He pointed out how aggressive Lopes was, not only on the feet, but also on the ground. What stood out to Volkanovski was Lopes' willingness to take risks, throwing up submissions even if it meant sacrificing position. Fighters like that, he said, were always tricky because they weren't afraid to gamble for a finish. At the same time, Volkanovski kept his mindset grounded. He believed the only real way someone could beat him was by catching him, landing something unexpected, or slipping in a submission. In his view, no one could out-strategize him over 5 rounds, and the only fighter he ever felt could get close to doing that was Islam Makhachev.
Volk's been getting checked twice in a row, even though it was against greats. Talking about Islam.
Like 2 top 3 pound for pounds, yeah.
Yeah.
You tell me who's going to beat Islam right now outside of maybe Ilya moving up. Volk took it on short notice, a week out of shape, a weight class up, and hung with him. You know what I mean? Got chin checked.
It was
and then
close.
he went into
he
it.
had nothing to lose.
I agree.
But then
I
they
agree
go back
100%.
for the rematch, and Islam was like, "Fuck this."
Yeah, I agree 100%. Then he goes into the Ilya fight, right? And Ilya at that time was, I don't want to say he's peaking, but he's got to be peaking. So now you say, okay, Volk's been chin checked twice in a row. The only question in my mind of him not winning that fight is if he's just chinny at this point, which a lot of guys get. You know, when you start to get knocked out, it becomes a little easier to get knocked out. Other than that, I think Volk.
After Bisping, Mike Perry offered a detailed perspective on Volkanovski's recent performances, acknowledging the champion's incredible resilience, but also pointing out potential weaknesses. Perry started by giving credit to Volkanovski for his heart and grit in his fights against top contenders, like Islam Makhachev. Despite moving up a weight class and taking the fight on short notice, Volkanovski still managed to push Makhachev to the limit. Perry highlighted this as a testament to Volkanovski's skill and toughness. However, he also pointed out that Volkanovski had been knocked out twice in his recent fights, once by Makhachev and once by Ilya Topuria. Perry's concern was that these knockouts might suggest that Volkanovski's chin, which has long been one of his strengths, might not be as sturdy as it once was. When fighters experience knockouts in quick succession, it can make them more susceptible to future knockouts. Perry made it clear that this wasn't a criticism of Volkanovski's overall skill set, but more of a question mark surrounding his durability going forward. He emphasized that if Volkanovski's chin holds up, he's confident that Volkanovski would easily defeat Diego Lopes. But the real question was whether those previous knockouts would have a lasting impact on Volkanovski's ability to withstand future hits. Perry's thoughts weren't just about Volkanovski's chances against Lopes, but were more about the long-term implications of the damage from those knockout losses. His concern was that, as a fighter accumulates knockouts, it could make them more vulnerable to further damage, especially if they face another powerful striker. If Volkanovski can get past these potential vulnerabilities, Perry believes he would still be a dominant force in the division. However, the key to his success would depend largely on how well he's able to recover from those knockouts and maintain the chin that helped him become one of the best in the sport. Now, when it comes to Tim Welch, he believed that Lopes had the upper hand despite Volkanovski's history as a champion.
36 years old, he is 1-3 in his last 4 fights. So he's on a 2-fight losing streak, but versus Islam and Ilya Topuria, both by KO.
Volkanovski, at 36 years old, had been struggling with a 1-3 record in his last 4 fights, with 2 of those losses coming by knockout against top competitors Islam Makhachev and Ilya Topuria. Welch acknowledged that Volkanovski had faced significant setbacks, which can be tough for any fighter, especially at this stage in their career. The losses by knockout could be especially damaging, as the mental and physical toll of such defeats often affects a fighter's performance in subsequent bouts.
He's taken on the hard-hitting Diego Lopes, who is a young buck, 30 years old, in his absolute prime, 5'11". He's a tall, really good boxer, hard-hitting boxer, and he's on a fat win streak. He's coming in here with a lot of confidence. Gavin Tucker, Pat Sabatini, Sodiq Yusuff, Dan Ige, Brian Ortega were his last wins. God, he's gonna be coming in there with a lot of momentum. Okay, if I had...
On the other hand, Diego Lopes, at 30 years old, was in the prime of his career. Lopes was on a hot streak, coming into the fight with several notable wins, including victories over fighters like Gavin Tucker, Pat Sabatini, Sodiq Yusuff, and Brian Ortega. Welch noted that Lopes was brimming with confidence and was carrying momentum into the matchup. He emphasized Lopes' youth, his height advantage at 5'11", and his power, particularly his hard-hitting boxing style, all of which made him a formidable opponent for Volkanovski. Although Volkanovski had been a dominant force in the past, Welch pointed out that at this point in their careers, Lopes' confidence and momentum might give him an edge. Despite respecting Volkanovski's accomplishments, Welch believed that Lopes could come out on top. He went as far as predicting Lopes would win the fight by a 5-round decision based on his current form and momentum.
To pick, God, I hate betting against Volkanovski, the great, but right now, where we're at right now, I think Diego Lopes might get him, and I think he's going to get him by decision. 5-round decision, Diego Lopes. Let me know what you guys think. Okay, next up, the one I'm most excited for is Paddy the Baddy.
As Welch mentioned, Lopes is coming into this fight with a lot of momentum, and he's young, hungry, and aggressive. While discussing his impressive streak, Tim highlights Lopes' unpredictable nature, comparing him to a train coming at full speed. This matches the energy that people expect Lopes to bring, especially in those early rounds. It's clear that Lopes isn't just relying on his physical abilities, but also his mental state. The way Tim describes him paints a picture of someone who might catch Volkanovski off guard if the champion isn't sharp right from the get-go.
There's only two ways I see this fight going. If Alex be the winner, I think he goes to vintage Alex, you know, stick and move, pop shot, you know, enterprise leg kicks, maybe grapple, maybe against the fence, some dirty boxing against the fence, you know, against the cage, and he ekes out a decision, you know, maybe a unanimous decision. We see what happens. Or if Diego wins, it's within the first 3 rounds, bro. I think Diego catches him. Diego likes to, bro, he starts, like, he comes at you, you know, like 100 miles per hour, bro. He comes at you, you know, and he's like a crazy train. He's like a train flying off the...
Max Holloway, on the other hand, added some important thoughts talking about Volkanovski's ability to bounce back and adjust. While Lopes might have caused chaos in the early rounds, Holloway's experience with Volkanovski showed as he explained how Volkanovski could go back to his old style, moving around, using leg kicks, and outsmarting his opponent. This matched what Tim Welch said about Volkanovski needing to stay smart and patient, knowing that Lopes' aggression was a big threat, but that Volkanovski's experience could wear him down.
Punching at you, so I think the most dangerous part for this fight is definitely the first 2 rounds for Volk, maybe 3. But if Volk go to vintage Volk, sticking and moving, leg kicking, being smart, you know, getting him against the cage, ground upon him, maybe even take him down here and there. You know, I know Diego has great jiu-jitsu, great grappling. Volk trained with one of the greatest grapplers in the world, Craig Jones, and they do a bunch of weird. So
you gotta love Craig Jones.
Bro, Craig's the man, bro.
You gotta love Craig Jones.
I love him. So at the end of the day, I think Volk's recapture, but I can see Diego capturing it and catching Volk, but it's MMA.
Both Tim and Max said the early rounds were really important. Tim mentioned that the first 2 or 3 rounds were crucial for Volkanovski, and Max agreed, saying Volkanovski knew how to adjust. Max also pointed out that Volkanovski had stayed focused even after losing before, and going back to his roots made sense, especially when thinking about Tim's point about how Volkanovski could outsmart Lopes as the fight went on. Max also brought up how Volkanovski had the ability to push through setbacks, something he had done himself in their past fights. This kind of mindset might have been what Volkanovski needed to handle the pressure from Lopes and the recent losses. So it wasn't just about being physically strong, there was also a mental side to the fight, which Tim had noticed when he talked about how Lopes had gained some momentum. That's what makes this matchup so compelling. We're not just talking about styles or predictions. This fight didn't come out of nowhere. It's the product of timing, legacy, and opportunity. Volkanovski, once the king of the featherweight division, suddenly found himself in a rough patch. After dominating names like Max Holloway, Brian Ortega, and Jose Aldo, Volk hit a wall. He suffered a brutal knockout loss to Ilia Topuria, and before that, a short-notice KO defeat at the hands of Islam Makhachev. Both fights raised questions about wear and tear, about whether the reign of the great was starting to fade. But Volkanovski, being who he is, didn't take time off. Instead, he wanted to get right back to work, and that's where Diego Lopes comes in. Lopes, on the other hand, had a completely different path. Just a year or 2 ago, he was flying under the radar, but then came that wild brawl with Movsar Evloev where despite losing, he turned heads. From there, he went on a tear, stopping Gavin Tucker, slicing through Pat Sabatini, and then dropping Sadiq Ayusuf. The biggest moment came when he dominated Dan Ige, followed by a razor-sharp performance against Brian Ortega. Suddenly, people weren't calling him a wild card anymore. They were calling him a future champ. At the end of it all, the fight was huge. Diego Lopes and Volkanovski faced off, each with something to prove. Now that it's over, what did you think of the fight? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.